kept on seeing so many Facebook ads from Lingoculture in the past few months, and I figured, why don't I try it out myself? Welcome to Language Travel Adoptee. I give really in-depth progress update, being transparent about what programs I use to get the results in my studies. Lingoculture, which is, by the way, the French version of the well-established online school Baselang, I thought that I would give a really in-depth review here because when I was kind of searching around for Lingoculture's reviews, I didn't see a lot, and I really believe in the program. So I hope I can clear up a lot of things for you if you are trying to figure out if it's the right program for you. You are going to see directly what the sign-up process looks like, onboarding process, availability of all the teachers, how many time slots there really are. I really wanted to see in reality how much availability you would actually have if you could truly book any time. How last minute can you actually book? I also managed to film the very first class that I had with my first Lingoculture teacher, which I will show you at the end as the teacher evaluates just my overall level. And then afterwards, I will go into my overall recommendations for both beginner, intermediate, and advanced students who are looking to improve their French in an immersive online school environment. So I will be answering your questions at the very end of the video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe if you have not, because I do want to make a lot more reviews like this in the future. So let's get started. So you can see here, I just signed up and put in all my card information. It is going to ask me 3 questions. So I picked pretty advanced for the first one. Going into this, you guys, it's really important to note I am more of a B2 speaker and learner of the French language, so just keep that in mind. I really like that they clearly tailor the introduction video to if you are either beginner, intermediate, or advanced. I got the video for the advanced version, and we're gonna see what she says here.
Et bienvenue sur Lingoculture. We're so happy to have you among us, and I can't wait for you to start this exciting adventure of learning French with us.
Yeah, so this is basically a 7-minute video really detailing you where you need to be. They have about 9 levels rather in their teaching curriculum, where you can go from level 0, absolute beginner, up until level 9, which is really advanced. So obviously the goal that you should probably have if you are signing up for Lingoculture is that you want to speak as your main goal. I know that is not every language learner's goal to speak, but if you are looking for that sort of objective in your learning, then Lingoculture is obviously a good choice to go with. But I do like the core lessons. Obviously you would start with the very first chapter, and then you go way down to breaking down, I think, chapter 12 even. You can kind of see their material as well, or the curriculum that they would use in their classes to teach you. And you can download it for off-site, which I really like. Sometimes I just prefer to work through the worksheet that I'm going to be going through in class. But again, it's really well laid out. I really like the exercises that they provide with the core lesson of the topic they're going to discuss. So you can see that under their core lessons tab. Really good that they have more advanced topics like the subjunctive, because that is one of the hardest things for me to work on with any Romance language. You will definitely know what I mean if you are studying French right now. And then I really like that they have pre-made flashcards for each of their vocabulary lessons and just lessons in general through different topics on Memrise. I also really like to use Memrise for flashcards, so it's great and convenient that they already have that out for you, because flashcards take up way too much of my time to make them, and then I never get to them because my energy is just spent trying to actually make them in the first place. And you can kind of see all of your options to the side here. We are going to try to book a new class. You can add your time zone. And then you do see a chat window in the lower right-hand corner, so I really like how they're really walking you through how to use their platform. And for this one, since they are a newer school, I think it's been like less than a year since they have officially opened Lingoculture after they established Baselang for Spanish. So I can understand why they didn't have any availability for the very first day that I wanted to book it, but it still made me sad that I couldn't take a class immediately when I signed up for the free trial. I also work on Saturdays, so that's not the optimal time. Also looks like they have open class times 2 up until 6 a.m. my time, and then they don't have any until 9. So I was expecting more times to be available. I'm guessing they do not have as many teachers for their already established school Baselang, and it looked like they have a system for blocking off classes as you go. Either that or students who are already a part of Lingoculture before I signed up already got all of the available teachers for Friday. So I was pretty sad about only having technically 5 out of the 7 days that I could actually book a class class with Lingoculture just because of availability reasons. If you have ever used like Preply or Italki to find a tutor, you will see that those platforms have gotten so popular in, I think, the last 5 years. You have to click on each individual profile to really see what they are all about. I think for this Lingoculture program, it's nice to just have like 1 to 3 teachers that you can pick from, and you can actually see what they specialize in, what you can work on them with, interests they have, which is really important whenever you are looking for the right teacher. I wouldn't say it's as important in the first phase as long as they can teach you the basics, but once you get into the higher beginner, intermediate phase, you do want a teacher that will be able to talk with you about different subjects that you enjoy talking about, not just the generic, what did you do, what did you buy at the grocery store, that kind of thing. And they do have an introductory video as well. So again, as I am booking my first class for that Wednesday on March 5th, they only have 1 teacher available for the time slot of 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then they have a few more options at 2. So it says up here that 1 slot was already booked by another student. So again, I had to go back. I kept on getting that message about 3 or 4 times when I tried to book my very first 2 lessons. I was a little bit confused because I was wondering why the teachers still showed up every time I went back to rebook my times and then rebook the teachers. I would think that the teachers would disappear. So that part was a little bit confusing. And then you do have a chance to fill out what you want to work on the teacher with. If you do like to work with a teacher with Lingoculture, they won't always be available for the time slots, but it seems like there were a lot of other personal teachers as well. It just seems that you have a little bit more flexibility with trying to stick with the teacher that you want. But again, if someone books your time slot that you wanted before you do, then you won't have access to that teacher for that hour. And you'll see a little bit of my class here.
C'est votre première séance, c'est vrai? Ok, j'ai une expérience de 6 ans à enseigner les langues arabe, anglais et français. Je suis aussi écrivaine et poète. J'ai un master en littérature et civilisation anglaise.
Merci beaucoup pour te présenter. J'espère aussi que tout va bien si j'utilise tu.
Normal, ne vous inquiétez pas.
Oui, j'oublie quelquefois. Je suis des États-Unis. J'ai grandi dans l'État Arkansas. En fait, j'ai commencé à apprendre le français au lycée, mais je n'avais pas beaucoup d'intérêt parce que j'avais une mauvaise enseignante et j'ai choisi de continuer avec la langue allemande et j'ai étudié à l'étranger en Allemagne.
This is just an overview of the slides that we went through together for the welcome class. I was looking at all of the questions and answering in French. I'm sure you would be welcome to answer in English just depending on your level in French. Now, I do like that they are making you clear about your goals, what you want to focus on, making sure that they communicate that they're dedicated to you in achieving those goals, asking each learner how much time they actually have to dedicate, have them reach a little bit more clarity through all of this, whether you pick their curriculum or if you totally focus on something else, some disclaimers as well. And then we did a little virtual test together just for my level. We are not going to go into all of these. I'll just put them on the screen and you can pause wherever you need to look at what kind of questions were asked. But I actually had to do 2 because the very first exam was mainly for beginners. I would probably say up until upper beginners. And then we did a second test, which went more into the subjunctive, more involvement in grammar, etc. And after giving me my results, she did give me an overview on the Tendance curriculum textbooks that I will go more into once we reach the Q&A section of this video. I do like that the teacher stayed in French pretty much the whole time. Something that annoys me personally just as a language learner with teachers is that when I don't exactly understand something or I want them to repeat it again, they will just speak to me in English, and then I'm just like, well, I get that for maybe a beginner, but if you're intermediate, then I want it to be everything in the target language that I'm learning. So it's really good that she was able to just to stick to the target language, considering my level. Class was about 45 minutes. They wanted to keep the class below an hour just so teachers had enough prep time. They do use Google Meet. And again, they gave me the level of B2. The next days, I was able to book a class for each of those 5 days after skipping the first 2 days due to availability. The main point on all of this is that you can book multiple classes all in one day. It is not entirely true that you can book at any time. They don't have the staffing quite yet for all of the time slots that you can take. So it seems like whenever you book one teacher, like that time slot is gone. Totally understandable, but just something to be aware of as Lingoculture is in its early stages. As I'm about to show you with Baselang, they have so much availability with Spanish teachers. It looked like even 20 on one time slot. And then their availability went all the way up to like 11:30 p.m. my time, and it started at like 5 a.m. So I could have really booked at any point for that. But I think for Lingoculture, you will have to stick with their limited availability and limited staffing as they grow as a company if you do want to join. So that's just something to be aware of. They also have different teachers from around the world, so you can kind of get used to different accents. So you don't have to stick with just an accent from France. You can also go to Algeria, speak with someone from Tunisia. And just because they have such an established school with Baselang, it is very clear that they know what they're doing with Lingoculture. They have really good, reliable customer service. I really do like the curriculum that they give for French. Again, it is downloadable, and I like how organized it is. It does remind me of a textbook in itself would be organized. It's really nice because it's broken into different levels, and you can mark things as completed through the curriculum, which kind of just shows you the progress you've made. Now, they don't offer any other like side programs like Baselang does. I saw with Baselang, it looks like they offer Grammarless, a intensive 4-week period of getting to know the Spanish basics and having you speak in a conversation within 30 days. And they also have an in-person school in Colombia, which is super cool when I signed up and saw what Baselang was all about. Again, I hope that Lingoculture does do something like this in the future, but for now, it is not an option. Just seeing the levels of the curriculums and just seeing the range of teachers available, there were some that were marked for more beginner to intermediate learners, intermediate to advanced learners. So I would say it is a really good option if you really want to jumpstart French from the very beginning. They will walk you through everything, and you can do that every single day if you wanted to. Same with intermediate learners, and I think same for advanced learners, especially for me when I'm trying to get over the intermediate plateau where it is harder to see progress. I do like that immersive environment that Lingoculture would offer. I probably wouldn't pick Lingoculture for just off and on lessons, right? Because it is $149 a month. It would probably cost more if you were just all over the place and didn't know that you had enough availability to really take advantage of that price. I had done maybe let me do the math right now. If you took one lesson every single day with Lingoculture, that would cost about $496 per 45 minutes with them. I feel like with Preply and with Italki, there are always service fees, and with Lingoculture, you just pay and it's one and done. So you don't have to add on any extra fees to that, which is nice. Again, I would recommend this mostly if you are looking to go really, really intensively into learning French. If you really want to have one-on-one attention with teachers, if you are prepping yourself to go to a French-speaking country and you really need an intensive environment, but you are not living in an environment where you can speak French, then definitely a school like Lingoculture for French would be what I would recommend. So thank you guys for sending in all of your questions, and I picked out the first 4 that I think that you'll get the most out of. How do course materials and lesson topics compare to Lingoda? And I have used Lingoda before for French especially. I did post a review on Lingoda and my progress in French, so you can check that up in the card above. Both of them have slides used in their curriculums. The big difference is that Lingoculture has a full textbook curriculum called Tendance that kind of goes behind the scenes if you do want to use that as part of the curriculum when you go through your classes with a teacher. And that is something that I would definitely look for if I really wanted to get to an advanced level. Unfortunately, Lingoda only could go up until the higher intermediate B2 level. Lingoculture has materials up until the C2 level. So the textbook thing is really big. But in terms of just the slides portion, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about organization and how both companies structure it. So Lingoda, not having a textbook curriculum, curriculum is going to have, in general, longer slides, and it is very clear sequence and the flow of each lesson. I mean, their slides can have up to 40 pages, and they also come with answer keys. They also come with exercises, and they come with a little bit of vocabulary, a little bit of grammar if that's the focus on the lesson. And you can also have a lot of speaking prompts. It just really depends on what your focus is for Lingoda, but all of those lessons are categorized as such. Again, keeping this in mind that their slides are a lot longer. Lingoculture breaks it up into sections. So you'll see core lessons are hidden behind each level. So you have level 0 to 9, you have like a different number of core lessons depending on which level you choose. And each of those core lessons can also focus on just different skills. Some grammar, actually a lot of grammar, especially when you go up into the higher levels, that you are able to really pinpoint and drill down, which I find really useful just for me, just because I think that it's very hard to sometimes get over the intermediate plateau because there are holes in your grammar and your grammar usage. So Lingoculture is really good for that. And I think that they have more exercises in general to practice that specific grammar point. Same with vocabulary. So grammar is divided into sections. Vocabulary has its own slide section that you will see at the beginning of pretty much every core lesson. If you were, for example, like taking a lesson on transport, right? So you would be using a lot of the vocabulary that would be associated with transport. I didn't really have to look back at the vocabulary slides too much. Obviously, we used some of that vocabulary in the lessons that I was doing with my teacher over my trial, but it is really well organized for just having a slide section of the essential vocabulary that you'll need for each core lesson. So that's really helpful. I enjoy Lingoculture more just because they have more material and they have more options to practice what you've learned. But again, both Lingoda and Lingoculture are similar in how they focus on really speaking and listening, and grammar if you want. But speaking and listening are really big with both of these companies that I've observed in my own experience. Now with the textbook curriculum that is associated with Lingoculture, again, it goes from A1 up until C2, and it's really hard for me to find sources that will go up to C2. Lingoda, as I said before, does not go up till C2. I think their limit is B2, which is something to consider if you are looking to get into really advanced territory for French. I would recommend Lingoculture more for that. And for their textbook curriculum, you will get text and audio formats for all of that textbook series, which is really convenient with all of the vocabulary, the speaking prompts, the grammar points. Everything is integrated into one sort of presentation for Lingoda for each of their lessons, and then Lingoculture tends to break those pieces, break those skills down a little bit more and organize them under like subcategories for each of their levels. So it really just depends on what organization type you prefer. Both have instructions in the target language. In the very beginning, both kind of have like really simple sort of directions, like let's practice in English, but other than that, I mean, everything's in the target language. And obviously with Lingoculture's bulk curriculum behind all their textbooks and everything, they are going to have more topics of discussion than Lingoda will. So question 2 is, how is the teacher feedback system? I tend to get very generic answers from teachers, as well as students who provide feedback under teacher profiles on Italki, but I do wish that people would be more transparent. With Lingoculture, they do have more of an honest feedback system, and in fact, they will give it to you, like, at least that's what my teachers did for me. Did this really well, but you need to work on present subjunctive or like a certain grammar concept, enhancing more vocabulary, exact criticisms. That I think really helps you, especially if you are in the intermediate stage and you need to get over the challenge of just perfecting what you already know. And to my understanding, the tutors actually pass your progress on. So whatever notes they've written down, like they'll write down what you worked on, what your strengths are. And so every time I had to change a new tutor, it wasn't like I was having to really reintroduce myself again, really say what I was working on, like I have to do with just other freelance tutors who are online on different like platforms that you can just pick your teacher. How does it compare to self-taught apps like Pimsleur? So for Pimsleur, it focuses more on listening and speaking, and then they have a really small like reading section that is optional, which I never use as I'm learning Chinese right now, so it's definitely less emphasized for that certain skill. For Lingoculture, you are going to have more commitment. It is $149 per month, and you can really get the most benefit if you take lessons more and more frequently, even like multiple times a day. And for that price as well, you do get a well-rounded introduction to listening, speaking, reading, writing, grammar, like all of those skills that you want to perfect, they will have it for you. And Pimsleur and all of these gamified apps, I mean, it won't be the same depth. So just really decide on what commitment level you have, what time you can invest, what money you can invest. I know Pimsleur is like $14.95 if you're just doing one language. Obviously, you are going to get real humans instead of an app or a recorded voice, and you will be able to get exposure to different accents in the Francophone world, which is also really helpful for listening. And Lingoculture has the best money back guarantee that I've seen for a language program. They will reimburse you within the first like 14 days. If you're not enthusiastic about their program, they'll send you an extra $20 as well for wasting your time, as they say on the website. The last question is the experience similar to the Italki teachers? That can mean a lot of things, right? So there's a big range of Italki teachers, and there's a lot of filters that you can put on Italki. So you can put non-native, you can put native, you can put professional, you can just put tutor. Because it's so individualized and because there's so many teachers, right? It is hard to answer this question because there is such a broad range of experiences and broad range of tutors and teachers with different levels of experience, different teaching styles, different curriculums that they think you might need depending on how they teach and what kind of teacher they are. I usually opt for Italki tutors who have taught at least 100 lessons and are non-native or native speakers. It doesn't really matter to me. And they don't have to be professional teachers, but I do want them to have like a certain number of years experience. And in that scenario, yes. So Italki tutors or teachers and Lingoculture teachers are similar in experience. I would say with Lingoculture, there's not as much overwhelm in picking a teacher. Also because, again, they are a growing online school, so they will introduce more and more teachers as they grow, but again, it will not be near as many as what you would have to pick from for Italki or Preply, one of those really popular platforms. And again, with Lingoculture, you can either filter by the time slots or the teacher. Then you could filter for them. But those are the only two filters that I've seen for Lingoculture to just select your teacher. And again, you can book more last minute than you could on Italki. I think on Italki you have to book at least 6 hours in advance, and some teachers require you to book 12 hours in advance. With Lingoculture, I would still, at their early stages, advise you to book at least a day in advance if you really want a slot, because they don't have as many staff as they do for their partner school that is already well established. I was still able to book some lessons about 2 hours in advance before another student booked the teachers out, so that was good. But just consider that the whole experience with a teacher and being on the platform. I think Lingoculture is more organized than Italki just because there's also not as much overwhelm. Again, I was talking about there is no set curriculum between Italki tutors, and you will have to reintroduce yourself and your goals every single time you switch, as with Lingoculture, and they all have a set curriculum that they are teaching off of. So it is more standardized for Lingoculture if you are looking for that. If you do choose to go through the Lingoculture curriculum, it is easy to track your progress about where you are, but you do also have a lot of flexibility to choose what you work on. I think for me, I preferred most of the time during my trial week to just have a conversation lesson and really build around a topic that we had scheduled in advance. So it is really your own time, and it is your individual time as well, which is also really good. And of course, with that curriculum, you do know that you are getting quality instruction, especially with different tutors who have had years of experience. And I pretty much took a class with a different teacher like every time, like all those 5 days during my trial week. Now, if you are interested in trying out Lingoculture, you can click my link down below and it'll take you to the page and try your first month. If you have tried Lingoculture before, let us know what your experience was in the comments. Again, I want to commit to Lingoculture more often when I know I have the time commitment for it and I can get the most out of the price. Otherwise, make sure you subscribe if you have not, give me a thumbs up, and turn on those notifications for next week when I come out with another video. Bye guys.